Hi guys, welcome to the first instructional video. Um, so this week we're just kind of going over some pre-algebra topics, just kind of as a review before we start getting into the real Algebra 1 stuff. So one of the things I wanted to go over was order of operations. So most people learned it as PEMDAS or please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. But basically, it's just a way to remember what order you do things in if you're performing operations like adding, subtracting, and all that stuff. So the first thing you would always want to do is the parentheses, or really any grouping symbol. The one that we're going to see most often right now is just going to be parentheses, but this could also be if it's all under square root together, if it's in a bracket or something. But anyway, you want to do those first. Next would be exponents. So once you show the parentheses, if there's something squared to the third power, that's what you want to do next. Next would be multiply and divide. Multiply and divide. And these two kind of go together and you just go from left to right. So if there's more than one operation of multiplying and dividing, general rule of thumb, just go from left to right. Left to right. And then last is going to be add and subtract. You're going to kind of follow the same thing there. So they kind of go together. Like technically, you don't have to add before you subtract or subtract before you add. You just both of those go together and you just go from left to right. So an example of this would be, like, let's say we have plus 4 right there plus 2 squared. Okay, let's do that. So the first thing we would do here would be the parentheses. So we would want to go ahead and add that 3 and the 4. So 8 times 7 divided by 7 plus 2 squared. Next thing we're going to want to do is the exponent. So I'm just going to bring down everything else. So 2 squared is going to be 4. Then we're going to multiply and divide from left to right. So first I've got 8 times 7, which is 56. And then next thing I'm going to do is divide by 7, which is 8. Oops, I made that. 4. Plus 4, so 12. You really want to be careful with calculators doing stuff like this. Like, for example, if you were trying to use your calculator in your phone, if you just type that straight in, it's probably not going to do the order of operations right. If you have a scientific calculator, it should do the order of operations right. If you don't have an actual calculator and you don't want to have to rely on the one on your phone, I recommend GeoGebra. It's one that we'll be using for graphing eventually, and you can also type stuff like this in and get an answer. So just something to keep in mind as far as calculators go. Next, we're going to talk about kind of translating back and forth between words and what are called algebraic expressions. An algebraic expression is basically letters and numbers, or variables, coefficients, things, where basically you are, it's the difference between an expression and an equation is that an expression won't have an equal sign. It's kind of just like saying, like 5x plus 2 would be an expression, but 5x plus 2 equals 12 would be an equation. So right now we're just dealing with expressions. So when we're going to be translating from words into math, because math really is kind of like a language, some of the vocabs that you're going to want to know are things like when, like basically we're trying to figure out, is it talking about, adding? Is it talking about subtracting? Is it talking about multiplying or dividing? So some ways to know that is if it's adding, one word they might use is a sum. So a sum is basically like the end product, the result of something that you add. In the same way, for subtracting, that would be the difference between two numbers. So that goes with subtracting. Difference. Multiplying would be the product. And dividing would be the quotient. A lot of times, people end up knowing most of these like sum, difference, and product, but quotient is the one that throws people off. So just remember, like the weird cute word quotient, it goes with divide. So other words you might see would be if you're adding, it might say more, or if you're subtracting, it might say less. If you're talking about multiplying, it might say the word times something. And right, that was the other one. With add and subtract, you can see the words increase or decrease. So those are just some hints to know what it's telling you to do. So so here's some examples where you're going to be writing as an algebraic expression. So the quotient of 35 and 7, the quotient, that means divide. So, but I'm going to try and have us get in the habit of using fraction bar when possible. So if it, in this case, the quotient of 35 and 5, we're going to put them in order. So it's 35 divided by 7. Technically, you can use the division symbol, but I like fraction bars better. So the next one, the sum of W and 8, that's addition. So it's just, W plus 8. And then this is where it gets tricky. So when you're talking about subtraction, the order really matters. And when it's saying 16 less than X, think about what that actually means. It's saying that you have X and you're taking 16 away from it. So this is the one case where we're not going to write the number and the variable in the order that it's given to us. So if it's 16 less than X, that means X minus 16. So you actually have to take a minute and think about what it is it's saying. Then the last one I have here is 14 decreased by X. And that one is just going to be in the order it's given. So you have 14 and you're decreasing it by X. So you're subtracting X from it. So just something to be mindful of, just something to be careful. We are going to practice this during the Google Meet, so don't stress too much. This is stuff that you should have seen before. Then last thing that we're doing this week is evaluating you using like the given values. So basically what that means is you just take the number and plug it in to whichever letter it gives you. So like, for example, number 7, it says that R is 5. So I'm going to replace R with 5. Then I'm going to keep the minus, keep the parentheses. And Q is 2, so I'm going to replace Q with 2. And keep the plus sign. And then P is 1, so I'm just going to replace P with 1. So really, I'm just replacing the letters with the numbers that they're saying are equivalent, so, or equal to each other. So then I just do order of operations. So I would do the parentheses first. 2 plus 1 is 3, and then I just go ahead and subtract those and I get 2. Ta-da! So the other one, same thing. I'm going to replace my Y with a 6. And then I'm going to carry down all the other things. But instead of writing Z, I'm going to write 4, because they told me that Z is 4. Then I'm just going to say divided by 6. So order of operations says that we do parentheses first. And if you ever have parentheses inside parentheses, you always start at the inside parentheses first and then work your way out. So I'm going to start here, 4 plus 4. So 4 plus 4 is going to be 8. So that's going to be 6 times 8 divided by 6. Now 6 times 8 is 48. Divided by 6 is 8. So hopefully this isn't too bad, but if you have questions, please bring them to the Google Meet where we're going to do some practice problems together. And then after that's over, you will have an assignment to try on your own so I can see how you guys are doing. All right.